We'll go ahead and call to order this regular meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Citizen Advisory Committee. This is the third Thursday of October. It's the 20th, 2022. We are at 5:15 p.m. Chair, please call.
Oh, sorry, I was not ready.
Sorry. Right, I'll call it if you want.
Yeah, so let's do that. Okay.
Right, so John Arnold, present. Brian Conway, here. Brian Edwards,
Here.
Jason Greenberg, Billy Kleinlein,
Here.
Bradley Lucas, here. Andrew Manley, Nelson Schaefer, Paul White, here. Joseph Winia is here. Are you sure you're here? I am. Run. So we can go ahead and proceed to full of the agenda. So I have it shown on the screen share. It was distributed by email and uploaded to Dropbox on Monday, October 17th. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda as distributed and shown? All right, seeing none, that is approved. And we can proceed to our first order of business, which is approval of the meeting minutes from our September 15th regular meeting, which is also included in the packet. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Right, seeing none, those are approved as provided. Thank you for putting those together. Great, so we can go right on to reports, starting with reports from the district, if you would, Tom.
Again, I guess the first thing, most important thing, Tuesday, the county council did formally adopt our 2023 budget without any changes. So that is all approved, has been submitted to the state and is good to go. So, and yeah, I guess another thing I wanted to report, I don't know if anybody saw Lisa put a post on Facebook. We got a recognition from the local MC Iris organization we partnered with them this year, and they've arranged a couple of what they call weed wrangles at our South Walnut facility to remove invasive species. They've also have been out to the landfill and given us some thoughts, things that we can do out there to try to better control invasive species at the landfill. And so they did give us a recognition for our efforts of controlling invasive species, and that was nice to receive from them. So, other than that, as far as regular district business, not much to report. I was asked to give an update on the CBU digester study, well, I guess the progress from the consultant group. And I have a little, I will note, and Joe, I think I told you the wrong date earlier when we talked about it, but next week on the 26th, I'm supposed to get some updated information from them on that. But to this point, they've, I think initially they were looking at a 50-mile radius from the proposed facility for feedstock. They have expanded that to a 75-mile radius. I have reached out to roughly 180 potential, I guess, businesses, organizations that would be potential feedstock suppliers for the facility, focusing in on liquid waste haulers, and I'm not sure how to phrase them. I guess packaged food or food manufacturers, the people that supply the food to the grocery stores and the restaurants. Those are their priority contacts at this point. I think the last report I got, like I said, there have been about 180 they'd identified. I think they had about a 30% response rate from those that they had attempted to make contact with. And of those, a little less than half have indicated potential interest in using the facility if it was to be constructed. So I don't know what that means as far as volume. That information I did not get. So I'm not real sure, what those responses or lack of responses, lack of interest, given that it's less than 50% on both sides, what that means as far as the viability of the facility. So hopefully we get a little bit more detail and more specific information on what that means as far as the volume of material they think that those that have indicated an interest would be bringing into the facility and how that relates to the viability of it. So not a whole lot, but that's what I have at this point.
Tom, are there any questions on that report?
When you say liquid, you're referring to like liquids off of food or human waste liquids?
Septic haulers, fat, soil, and grease, the liquid type waste that restaurants and food producers would generate.
I'm curious, Tom, the report that's going to be provided, what will the format be? Just a written document they'll send you, or is there actually like a presentation or an exchange that will be involved?
I don't know. I've got a meeting scheduled with Vic Kelson from CBU, and what consultants will be present and how they will present, I don't know. So,
okay. I will note that if it is a public access type format, I would be interested in attending if there will be details provided.
Okay, I'm out of the office until Monday, but I can inquire about that when I get back.
Okay. Questions? All right, Tom, we'll go ahead and go on to the chair report, which the only thing that I wanted to report for this meeting was just a bit about the Zoom setup. So I mentioned it already because I'm giddy about it and I couldn't hold myself back. But I wanted to mention it as well in case I'm not present, because presently I'm the only person able to set it up. So in the event that I am late or absent, I want to note that there is a set of instructions that's on that little card sitting on the table at the front of the room. And it's really a pretty straightforward process. The only thing that's not included in those instructions is the login credentials for our account on the county network. So there's actually a Windows account that's been created for us that we have to log into. And so I'll show you, let's see, can I show you, is it possible for, actually, no, I think I should be able to go there. So I'm gonna just hide the Zoom display for a moment and just show everyone, this is the logged in screen. So if anybody ever were to come here and need to launch the thing, it's just a web browser.
Just make sure you're not sharing the actual login information.
Right, yep.
Okay.
I was just going to note, I'll provide that to everyone following the meeting, but there's just a web browser here, and then there's already an automatic page that goes to the county's events, which has a link to the Zoom session, or you can open it from the packet if you want to do that. But that's how you launch the Zoom session, and then that will give you this. So if there's any questions, we can take a look at it after the meeting as well. I just wanted to mention that to everybody who's here while we're here, so everybody can be able to take care of that, so we wouldn't be unable to have a meeting if there's anyone here who's able to do it. So that's all for the report. Are there any questions?
Joe, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Since you got into the Zoom setup and all of that, and I'm sitting here hosting the meeting from far, but so when I was doing all this and getting people into the meeting and stuff, meeting room 100B is in there twice. Do you know why that is?
No, I saw that actually, and unless I launched 2 Zoom sessions, I didn't think it was possible. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I don't see anything on the display that would indicate that it's logged in twice. And we have
Okay.
one instance of Zoom running. And
I just was curious if there was a reason for that, if that's how it was supposed to be, or if that was done in error, or just for future reference.
no, what I do notice actually is that I am not present. I mean, like my login, I wonder if I am somehow also, if my personal account is logged in as meeting room 100 being.
I saw that too. And it's interesting. Zoom won't let me sign in on 2 different browsers under the same username. So
I have found a way to circumvent that limitation. So change my login. How problematic is it? Something that
I don't know that it's, I don't want to, kill the meeting. So it's not
Right.
causing a problem. Maybe we just let it go this time. So.
Okay,
It's not something that carries over like the meeting to meeting, is it?
I don't think so. Honestly, there's nothing intuitive that I see on my end either. I feel like a buffoon, but I don't see an obvious way to change my login. So I think for the time being, meeting room 100B that's muted is probably my personal account, and the one that has the video active is the actual.
Okay.
Oh, I think we'll leave it at that.
I just was curious if I needed to be expecting the room to be logged in twice on these meetings in the future. So
I don't think so. Let's double check next time. I'll make a note. Thank you for pointing that out.
Maybe there's a solid wall that we could see through.
Okay. Well, I think that will conclude our reports then, unless there were any other questions. Tom, if you got anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Sorry, I'm bringing this back to full screen. There we go. Okay. Thank you all for your patience with that. So that concludes our primary reports. That brings us to reports of special committees, which I will just briefly speak to on behalf of the rebranding subcommittee. I did include, well, I should say, we had further exchanges on thoughts on the details of the district's new logo, because that's kind of the next most important part for proceeding with the rebranding process. And the
That was 3 little pictures.
yes.
Okay.
So the agency the time I've reached out to had expressed an interest in having greater detail for that, for providing a quote to us for producing the rebranding materials. So I will briefly share that on my screen now, just for reference, just in case anybody has any feedback they would like to provide. Indeed, so I am the other meeting room 100B.
Okay.
So for reference, this is just the 3 mock-ups that I had produced to share with the subcommittee, and just thought it might be an opportunity if any non-committee subcommittee members just want to provide their kind of thoughts on it. So there's 3 frames. There's this one. There's this one with the Indiana state outline, and then a wide version of that same version. So that's what,
But you didn't put the one in that I like,
which is,
the state of Indiana, like the trash can. But this,
that's like the.
yeah,
That one?
that's the trash can. Now, if you
Trash
make
can in the
that
shape of the state
the
of Indiana?
state, yeah, the trash can in the state shape of the state of
Yeah,
Indiana.
interesting. Okay, that's a fun thought.
I mean, you can put a little lake in there for hand.
Okay. We will potentially see what we can do with that. Appreciate the suggestion.
Yeah.
I do like the roller one, a little biased.
Yeah. Cool.
To me, I guess, because that looked like it was probably supposed to be the state of Indiana.
Yes, correct. Yep, okay. Your thoughts?
I do feel like for the second one, like it's almost too stylized for me to have recognized it as the state.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the third one in that? Like,
It is the same.
Yeah, there I did.
That's with the rollers, like everybody knows.
Yeah, you could put big wheels over there by Ohio, you know, and then that's a little foot.
It's gonna be like turn the other.
Yeah, well,
Gotcha.
no, you can leave it that way, but put the big wheel, yeah, the trash can be phased the other way. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was just at the end of the wheel.
Cutting dangerous waters there.
That's-
That's what we get on you, Ohio State.
All right, any other thoughts relevant to the logo?
Those were my thoughts.
Okay. Cool. I think that will-
Joe, hey, Joe, can I add just a little bit here?
Please, go ahead, Tom.
I guess with regard to the logos, and everybody I think noted that, they all said waste reduction district versus solid waste management district. And I know, Joe, and I don't know who all, I think you were included in the email string where I talked about that a little bit. And that is, there are a handful of districts that have changed their names over the years. And I did talk with some of them at the conference a couple of weeks ago. And it is to actually do it is a very simple. It's as simple as a resolution by the board. So the name change is the board's decision, and it can be done just through a simple resolution. Then of course there is some work for staff on the back end of that, dealing with vendors, Treasury Department, IRS, to get everything set up. Record wise for tax purposes and all of that, but it's not an overly complicated process. So just a little tedious for staff on the back end. So we will broach that with the executive committee at the meeting on the 31st. If it's something that there is interest in moving forward with, obviously we need to get that to the board and get that resolution done so we can move all that forward. And then secondly, I am meeting with a second consultant Monday morning that does specialize in rebranding and marketing. Get their thoughts, on what we're doing and the direction that we've been going. And my kind of hope is that with the one I talked with previously and the meeting I have Monday, that after that we could be in a position to put some stuff together. And go out and get some quotes from people and pick somebody and start working with somebody that specializes in doing this stuff and start to move things forward.
Tom, that is.
Are you thinking of solid waste reduction district because we're getting into liquids as well?
Well, we're not getting into
as opposed to solid waste district.
Well, no, we're not getting into liquids. That was what the CBU's consultant is looking at for their anaerobic digester. We've helped fund that study, and to that extent, we're a part of that. But we're not looking at getting into liquids. But it's more about what our mission is to reduce the amount of material going to final disposal. And you do that, by reducing what's generated, reducing what's thrown away. And I think that's where, going in the direction of something like waste reduction district came from.
Okay.
All right, thank you for the updates, Tom. Appreciate the information. That will then do it for the agenda. The work on special committees. We don't have special orders or unfinished business. So that brings us to new business, starting with the AISWMD attendee report. I will leave it open to whoever would like to pick up on that.
Well, I know, Tom, you had attended, of course, more of the conference than Andrew and I did. And I did make summary of my notes here from that day. Would you like me to share?
Please.
Did you have stuff that you wanted to present from your portion?
Well, you go ahead and you go ahead and present what you have, and if I think that there's something to add to that, I will jump in.
Okay, so Andrew and Manley and I attended the second day, the afternoon of the second day of the AISWMD conference on October 5th. And that included 3 sessions, how SWMDs fit into the circular economy, managing household hazardous waste collections, and working with your MS4. The first one, how solid waste management districts fit into the circular economy. Megan Hunt from HG Ventures was discussing, presented about the circular economy and how the current economy is only 8%, 8.6% circular. And the push towards a circular economy would help eliminate more waste and restore the environment. And also help meet public demands for corporate and community solutions, increase community level resiliency given supply chain disruptions, create more opportunities to extract value from waste. And so kind of like in line with the anaerobic digester stuff, it improves economy, community and business image from a marketing standpoint. Circular economy noted also relates to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, 11 for sustainable localities and 12 for responsible corporate activities. And they broke their goals from her more corporate standpoint she broke down her goals by corporate goals and community goals. For corporations, the goal is to help them gain zero waste to landfill certifications, which will help change corporate culture and put more pressure on stakeholders to reduce their waste to 10% or less that is incinerated. And for communities, the goal is to create education incentives and fines where necessary to help change culture towards a more circular economy. They also broke their targets down by individuals, government, and industry. For individuals, they're recommending education and resources as a way to promote circular economy. For government, advocacy and policy, and industry, inspection and consumer demands. So that was the first portion. The second session that I attended on household hazardous waste collections. So what I gathered from my notes, which I think there's probably some gaps in here, but they discussed at least the umbrella of systems working together to manage local household hazardous waste, noting support from the Association of Indiana Solid Waste Management organization, through memberships like our districts like ours having memberships, having a directory for policy and best practices, and also encouraging districts to participate in the household hazardous waste task force, which I wasn't able to tell online if Monroe County is part of that task force or not. So I have any more on how active we are on that. They also mentioned compliance and technical assistance program for businesses meant to help them access confidential help, and to encourage people to reach out to them for assistance, education, and training, knowing that they're not necessarily going to be penalized, but hopefully help train to better manage their HHW. They mentioned how RCRA is exempted. Well, household hazardous waste is exempted from RCRA. So it's important, pointing to our drop-off sites, offering spaces and times and places to dispose, help individuals, households dispose of their HHW. Reaching out to local emergency planning councils to help, through the SWNDs, building a relationship to help find better solutions for managing HHW and encouraging hazmat training through DOT where necessary. That's what I've got for the second session. And on our final session that Andrew and I attended, working with MS4, which is municipal separate storm sewer systems, which we do have, of course, in Monroe County. And it's relevant to this discharges from pipes in our homes and yards that enter receiving waters, separate from our sanitary water system. And MS4 targets the urbanized areas and the water training around hard services, managing, keeping it from becoming a non-point source of pollution. And let's see. And finally, they had 6 minimum control measures for entities with national discharge elimination system permits. Prioritizing public education and outreach, public participation, illicit discharge and illicit discharge detection and elimination, especially through tracking and report or polluter program, monitoring construction activities, and for municipalities to have good housekeeping, including pollution prevention plans, and finally annual reporting to share they've learned over the year. But both Andrew and I really wanted to thank you guys for allowing us to go to it. It was a learning experience for me for sure. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for going.
What do they talk about when they say a circle in economy?
Basically, from what I've gathered is, having a plan from creation to disposal of how materials brought into a system. So, the companies creating packaging, are they conceptualizing, from the beginning, is this material, what's the plan for disposal? What's the final debate? Can we make sure what we're bringing into the local economy isn't ultimately going to be end up in the landfill?
Okay.
We find alternate ways for it to go. But there's,
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Did you have additions?
Yeah, I add a couple of things and just, I guess on the circular economy, the real gist of that is to cycle resources through as many times as possible before they get discarded. If things still have a use, cycle them back through the economy. Don't just ditch them and bring in, use virgin materials to produce something that's already there. That's kind of the gist of the circular economy. And on the Household Hazardous Waste Task Force, that is something that we have been very, very involved in over the years. Scott Morgan was the president of that association for the past 10 to 12 years before he got ill. And so that's, he had to step down, obviously, of that. And as a result of that, we've stepped back a little. Leslie Talliard, who is the director at the Hamilton County Solid Waste District, is now the president of that. So we've taken a slight step back and let her, to take the reins and start to move things in the direction that she wants to. But Joey Long, who's now our operations director, still attends their monthly meetings. We're still very involved in that organization. So, and then I'll just real quickly summarize and recap. The first day of the conference, as it tends to do, focuses more on outreach and education. And it's a chance for all the district educators to get together and just, bounce things around off each other and brainstorm. Their roundtable this year really focused on some of the challenges that a lot of them are facing getting back into the classrooms post-pandemic, and dealing with school administrations and teachers, and kind of brainstorming ways to approach the school systems to get themselves back into the classrooms like they were pre-pandemic. And the afternoon sessions focused on 2 software packages that a lot of districts use. One was a video creation software called DaVinci, and the other is Canva. DaVinci I'm not real familiar with. We don't use that one, but we do use the Canva. And Elisa thought those were both good sessions, and she learned a lot from those. So.
Thank you, John. Any questions on those reports? I did want to ask, Brian, you had mentioned working with MS4. My knowledge, it wasn't something that this particular district is involved with. Steve Whittington is through, or at least CBU manages that, I believe. Tom or Brian, do you have any info on the overlap in other communities or this one?
There's a city in this pool and a county.
So yeah, I saw the counties too.
It's the county and election office. So, the city, I think, is actually is there a sport coordinator for the last year.
Okay, but not related to the solid waste management district. Oh, because this was the AISWMD meeting, right? Which is the Indian Association of Solid Waste Management Districts.
Right, and the connection they made was that SWMDs can support MS4 by helping with pollution prevention, public education, and prevention of dumping our waters.
Okay, I see. That was where the overlap was.
Yeah, so it's just like from what the part I caught anyways, like a portion of this presentation.
And we do a lot of that. And I mean, Elisa attends the monthly stormwater education committee meetings, and they use a lot of our advertising and promotional materials, because a lot of that references pollution prevention and clean water. So they're able to use a lot of that to show that they're meeting, the county is meeting the MS4 requirements. We don't totally do that, but a lot of our material helps them demonstrate that they're meeting the requirements of the MS4.
What does MS4 stand for?
Is municipal separate storm sewers.
The storm drain network for rainwater and not for.
Well, that's the name of one of our bus routes.
It's the thing.
Had to change gears here.
It's the thing the guy was hiding out in downtown a few weeks ago, where they shut it all down.
Yeah.
Of a personal connection.
Poor guy.
Any other questions on those reports? If not, thank you again to the district, as Ryan mentioned, and to Ryan and Andrew for attending. Good. Perfect. That will then wrap up our first item of business. Brings to our second, which is discussion of the district's new position job descriptions, which are the waste reduction specialist and the compliance HHW and landfill support staff. So both of those descriptions are included in the agenda. I hope everyone took the advantage to read through them. And I would just like to have the opportunity for CAC feedback. The board did express direct interest in hearing from the CAC about the position descriptions. So any thoughts are welcome on what they contain. Anybody wants to volunteer anything?
I like it. No suggestions.
Nice, good to know. Thank you.
Reading over it, I didn't want to have anything to add, but everything made sense. Reading standpoint, it looked good.
when I looked through them, it appeared to me that the waste reduction specialist is a administration in the office job. And the other one was probably somebody to take charge of the landfill.
The other one is more of a support position for Lee, who's already in charge of the landfill, and Mary Beth, who does the bulk of our our environmental compliance, illegal dump remediation work, and also to help with some additional labor needs in the household hazardous waste department. I've explained to the board that coming out of the pandemic, a number of our household hazardous waste vendors are putting more of the burden on us as far as preparing aerosol cans and the way that we pack materials to be received at their facilities because of the labor market and their labor issues. They want those items delivered to them more prepared for whatever process they're going to go through at that vendor. So we have a little more legwork on our end, preparing those things for shipment now.
Thank you for that, Tom. Any other thoughts? I do want to note, Tom, in particular, I noticed that under the purpose of the position for the compliance HHW and landfill support staff, still it describes the title as compliance HHW and landfill laborer. I don't know if this is the latest draft in our packet or if that was caught in another version that you have, but the job title doesn't match the title written in the purpose of the position.
Well, and that's why we have you guys review these things, because that was an oversight on my part. And now when the board looks at it, when they get ready to do the salary ordinance and create the position, we'll have it correct.
Perfect. Aside from that, like the others, I feel good about what it all contains. I'll just note, personally, I'm very excited about the waste reduction specialist position. I think that it's going to add a lot of capacity for the 5-year management plans. I've expressed that to the board as well, but I just wanted to verbalize that here. I think that will also be a potential excellent way for us to be able to engage with that activity with the district. If there's that point person working on the management plan goals and objectives.
Do you have people in mind for these jobs already, or do you?
No. I mean, we haven't even started looking yet. I mean, they're not funded till January the 1st, until the board adopts a salary ordinance that includes those positions, they technically don't exist.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're funded in the budget, so their money's there. But until the board adopts a salary ordinance, they technically don't exist.
All right.
In order to pursue things, and
I'm sorry?
so that seems like a good order to pursue things and establishing the positions or looking for those to fill them. Okay, I think that covers everybody's thoughts. So, Tom, however you want to approach that, either I can relay them to the board, or you can, as you see fit, and maybe talk about that at the executive meeting.
Yeah, and I will, because the committee will figure out how we're going to, set the board agenda. And I mean, the salary ordinance will be ready to go to the board. And obviously the job descriptions will need to be discussed before the board would vote on a salary ordinance. So we'll figure out the order and how all that's going to work at the executive committee meeting.
Perfect. All right. That will wrap up our second item of new business, bring us to our last, which is CAC membership. This is an agenda item that I added. The first element of which is sort of a repeat situation that we saw before, where it's two repeat things. And the first is that Mr. Greenberg, who is presently still a member, has only attended 1 out of 7 meetings. And I reached out to him about this, and he expressed his intent to resign before the last meeting, but has still not yet done so. So it's been 2 additional meetings of attendance with no response. So I would like to move that we recommend to the board to remove Jason Greenberg as a member of the CAC to prevent ongoing situations of quorum difficulties going forward.
I second that motion.
The motion and a second, thank you. Is there any further, or is there any discussion?
I want to give him a chance to I recall that, Lily, the thing that I did when I couldn't be here for a little bit.
Go inactive,
Inactive, yeah.
that's still part of our
I was gonna say,
bylaws.
presently, there's no such structure for doing so.
Okay.
Members per code, I believe, and our bylaws are required to be members and count as quorum. There's no way to have an in between. That's essentially the best approach is one can resign, attend as a member of the public, and then reapply, and the board can reappoint them. But there isn't an inactive member status.
We used to have. We had it. We had it because I was inactive.
I remember we used to have. I mean, when working on the bylaws, we had explicit conversation with County Attorney Lee Baker about membership and quorum requirements. And it very specifically stated that members count towards quorum. So I can't say,
Well, before those inactive members do not.
okay. Well, I will say Mason did express it.
Was it the same law guy that we had, Tom, or was it someone else?
Say it again.
Was Lee Baker our legal counsel when I went inactive, or was it someone else? And we had that clause, that thing
Yeah,
for being inactive.
It wasn't Mr. Baker, and I don't recall if it would have been Angela Parker or Bob Mann, and I don't remember exactly when that happened. But we didn't have as involved a discussion with them because at that time the CAC did not have any established bylaws. And what happened when we got Mr. Baker involved, that discussion was a part of establishing the bylaws. And I think that in getting the bylaws established, he took a little different perspective of it. The intent, my recollection, the intent when we previously looked at having that inactive status was, due to quorum issues. And the attorney that we were with at the time did not offer any objection to us, allowing that inactive status and how that would impact, accounting for a quorum at a meeting. Mr. Baker, obviously did when we were looking at establishing these bylaws, and I believe that the current bylaws do not address an inactive status position for any members.
I can confirm that it doesn't. I know that was part of our discussion as well when creating the bylaws. There was some interest in having that component, but that's why we followed up with Attorney Lee Baker at the conclusion, and the final version of the bylaws does not have that capacity.
So in
Yeah.
It's most desirous.
lieu of offering that, maybe we just reiterate that you are not ineligible to reapply in the future. Interested in changes, because we probably would have space if somebody wants to rejoin in 6 months or a year when their life is a little bit less.
For me, it was just a matter of work when I could get here, and for a good while I couldn't.
Sure. And I'll say for the scope of the motion on the floor, it's just to vote if we should recommend to the board to remove Mason Greenberg.
I think it's a plausible recommendation.
Other thoughts, discussion?
Like me, sometimes it's hard to get here because I work in Indianapolis and I don't always get away, and besides my mom died in May and I was gone for about a month because of that, and then my brother didn't feel sick. car accident, so I've had to go take care of him.
Sure, and we can discuss that
Life
following,
happens.
following the motion, but I mean, just for the scope of that motion, does that mean that, that you would prefer that more time be given, or I'll note that I reached out to Mason twice and he expressed his interest to resign and has not yet. So essentially, we're in a position where he's still a member, expressed a desire not to be, but hasn't taken the action necessary.
What's his job, his regular job?
The grad students,
He's fine.
the graduate students.
And I believe it's probably time to go.
If he's a graduate student, maybe he just doesn't have enough time, maybe. Because he's very busy with that.
I think moving forward with, the motion. I don't know, it just makes sense to me,
Yeah, so
expediency's sake for future meetings. But yeah, like Lily said, I'll be leaving that door open, sounds great.
Just both times we have voted to remove someone, it was after they indicated over email they would like to be removed, but then didn't follow up. So we haven't yet had an instance that you're talking about where someone is saying, oh, you can't come because I have things going on, but I really want to be on it. And that might be a different circumstance that we would allow for, not inactive, but extenuating circumstances.
okay. Then we'll call the question. I think we do a voice vote since we don't have any virtual attendees. So all those in favor say aye.
I,
Those opposed? Got to say aye as well, sorry, aye. So no opposition, that motion passes. So I will send a request to the board of directors to have Mason Greenberg removed from membership. The second portion of this is the ongoing lack of responses in the planning process that has, and poor attendance in general, which has led to continued difficulty in scheduling meetings. And in particular, there have been specific members who don't respond routinely and other members who do. So I have reached out to all the members who don't. And in particular, Nelson Schaefer was a member that I reached out to back in April. And so far, there has still been no responses during the call for attendance prior to a meeting. And there's still been a 50% response rate. And the bylaws and the district statute also specify that attendance less than, or attendance at or less than 50% is considered excessive. 2 or more consecutive attendances without, or absences without notification are also grounds for dismissal. So for this particular case, I would also like to recommend to the board, at least for consideration, not necessarily removal, but consideration of Nelson Schaefer's membership, who has consistently not been present and not met the requirements that this body has agreed to by meetings. So that's, I guess, my motion. Sorry, I didn't phrase it as such, but I moved to have the board review Nelson Schaefer's membership, consideration of those factors. Is no second.
So my only concern is that he's like part of the soil itself, man. You know, he's been around a long time. He's been running since like Cheryl Munson's been running. And like, I think that he might just be operating on a different program. And I think that he was one of the people that like explicitly said, like, I don't do email, I can't do email. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. If somebody like, I mean, it's, so I just think that he'll continue to show up maybe as a member of the public, but I see the reasoning and I support it, right? But it's just because like.
And I will say that the motion without a second doesn't need to be discussed. I expressed the stance. I appreciate your input. We can discuss it, and you can actually second a motion that you don't support. just kind of Robert's rules
To move it.
interest, yeah, so that it can be discussed and.
All right, I'll second your motion.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Oh,
The only discussion I have is I request that we call the roll and not do the vice.
I think Nelson is a valuable member of the CAC. And I know he doesn't hear a lot to give his input, but when he is here, it's very valuable.
I do actually want to share this. This is the membership attendance records. So this just gives you an idea of where there were meetings that were not attended and when we didn't have quorum. And essentially, in planning the last 3 consecutive meetings, just even though we did have quorum, there were only responses at the very last moment because I said the meeting was going to be canceled. So essentially, the vast majority of the meetings have almost not been held or didn't have quorum because of this consistent issue. And I reached out to clarify that this is why we have this process. We approved it as a body, so everyone has voted yes, or a majority has voted yes to doing this. And we are as members required to follow this process. But when it's not followed and attendance is a coin toss, we're considered consistently up against a situation where we can't conduct business. And if we were to follow through with our process as we agreed to, we would be canceling the majority of our meetings. And while I agree, I value everyone's participation and the membership, but members who don't attend essentially make it a difficult process for everybody who is attending. I personally want this to be a body that can do good work and can be productive and can feel like their time is being well used and not wonder every time, do I have to come? Because if I don't, we're not gonna have attendance, we're gonna cancel.
We sure mark me present for October.
Yeah, I updated later, but
So it starts with.
so I think also, we haven't gotten here yet, but I always feel like we're on the verge of what we used to have, which is we would meet anyway, and we wouldn't have a quorum, and then it would be like this effect of like, you know, a tumbleweed, where then people would stop coming who would normally come because we weren't having quorums. So it is like, I think really crucial that you don't have to use this spreadsheet. That's helpful for us on the back end, but indicating in some way, phone, text, email, like I plan to attend or I don't to the regular meeting. It's kind of essential with a small board like ours, small committee to operate.
Oh,
Yes, we sure updated that over making such an issue.
I have a cell
Yeah, his cell phone number.
phone. Huh?
Yeah, his cell phone.
We sure an update that since we're making such an issue about people not.
I did it after every meeting.
Nelson's?
yes. So I will note, it's
I
a
don't know.
great example. I reached out to him prior to this very meeting. He said he would attend this meeting.
Okay.
That's the second time this has happened.
Everybody says, but
And
that ain't working.
so yeah, he
Yes, I
responded
have
as
cell phone.
planning to attend this meeting, and I'll also note that, gosh, with this attendance planning, there is a provision for providing notification by phone or email.
Yeah.
And it's to any of the officers. And it's been clearly communicated, and I have received responses acknowledging this. And
And I apologize for my lateness on responding for this meeting.
that's, I mean, that's part of it.
It's. I get so much stuff come in. I think I've gotten it all. But oh, no, there's still a whole bunch of stuff I didn't see.
Sure.
And it takes me a while to think about, hey, I need to be a little more go through it. And so I know I'm slow in responding. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that
Yeah.
acknowledgement, but it still comes back on when it doesn't happen, it impacts everyone. As I mentioned to those specifically who didn't respond to this month's meeting, there were 2 members who reached out this month who were worried about personal conflicts and if they would need to balance coming here to help establish quorum or canceling something else that they could be doing otherwise. So there's a real and direct and recurring impact of this that we've been talking about for most of this year. And that's why all of this is set up to help all of us to be able to make good plans and to work well together. And that's really, for me, the foundation of where this is all coming from. I feel like those who are categorically not able to or not going to, that's just an ongoing difficulty and hindrance to the body meeting regularly, to the point where we end up almost canceling most of our meetings. So that's why I make this recommendation, and not even for the board, not even to recommend to the board to remove him, but for the board to consider it so that they can make their decision about these facts and how it impacts the case.
Well, the board's the ones that appointed,
Exactly.
and I guess I would be in favor of letting the board make that judgment call. If it doesn't. It is the board's decision.
It is, and everyone's entitled to vote no as well.
Yeah.
It actually does take a 2/3 majority of those present and voting to pass. Because it affects.
Think about that.
Yeah, I think so, unless there are any other thoughts.
I will, all Nelson later.
Appreciate that.
We've been friends.
So with that, if we could do a roll call vote and all again, you don't have. Okay. Maybe John Arnold,
No,
Ryan Conway,
Yes.
Ryan Edwards,
Yes.
Billy Kleinlein,
Yes.
Bradley Lucas,
Yes.
Paul White,
No.
Joseph Winia, yes. I didn't track that, so you want to.
So that's, yeah, five ayes and 2 nays.
So that motion does carry then. So I will also send a separate message to the board with, I think, a summary of what we discussed and a link to the section of the reporting in case they would like to read it.
And that's proper. That's proper.
And I will,
But what I can say is Nelson has said that he thinks this current CAC.
it's good to hear.
is
Okay. So I will send that note to the board, and then once a decision is made, I will send an update to the whole membership.
Sorry about last month. I was a week behind. It came up and I was looking, okay, I was like, make a meeting. That was yesterday.
Hey, Joe,
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I think before you make a notification to the board, I think you should hold off and let's bring this up at the executive committee meeting. And see how they want to, 'cause they may prefer that you have information to supply into the board packet. If this is going to be an agenda item to formally request the removal. This is not, in my time, this is not something that we've done, and I'm not real sure the proper process, how the board expects these types of situations to be managed. So I would feel more comfortable bringing it up with the executive committee versus you just blindly sending an email out to all the board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will take back my previous remark about the action item. Instead, replace it with, this will be discussed with the board or the executive board, the district. At the next meeting it's on the date, Tom.
It's the 31st, I believe.
Okay. All right, so that will be the action item instead. From there.
For both situations.
I think, yeah, Tom, would that also apply to the Mason Greenberg case? The first motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just I'd bring it up in the executive committee that, this was the vote, the decision made at the CAC meeting. to make these recommendations to the board and let the CAC guide how they want that presented to the board.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. And
So I'll move that we change the wording. That goes to the executive committee, not to. In
Well,
Robert's Rules of Order.
Well, no, I mean, the recommendation goes to the board because the executive committee can't say yea or nay to the recommendation. That is the board's call because the board makes the appointments. But I think that courtesy, if nothing else, to bring this up with the executive committee before an email or something is sent out to all board members.
And the executive committee is a portion of the board, yes, so it's still going to.
so I think the motion stands. It's just the action with regard to the motion will be different and
Yeah.
that it will be presented to the executive committee.
That's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. We can, yeah, I can just update that. Sure.
If I need to withdraw it, I'll withdraw
Okay, that concludes our last item of new business. That does bring us to our scheduled end time. I do want to, well, check to verify there are no members of the public present.
Not that I see.
Okay. And that will then bring us to the adjournment. If there is no objection, this meeting will adjourn. I forgot to make a reminder that our next regular meeting is Thursday, November 17th at 5:15 p.m. in the same room, Showery Building 1.
it. Are we going to be able to keep all of our meetings in this room? Notice the way I phrased that?
Yes.
For the remainder of this year, indications are that the room is available the third Thursday into 2023. But until the CAC sets a schedule for 2023, we can't confirm that.
Okay. I like this so much better than meeting up at that hill. I can hear it here.
All right. If there is no objection, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks. Hey, Tom,
Yep.
text me your phone number, please. I've lost it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Around, I have to teach a class in 10 minutes.
Okay, well, awesome. Thanks for coming.
It's fine.